Hey, Ellie, how you doing?
Doing great, Simon. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Wonderful.
I just wanted to connect all with to go over the mobile home deal. I know you've been reviewing it a little bit. Simon said you would be at 6.75, I believe, is what you said last.
Great to meet you, Simon. So I'll keep it short and sweet for you. The seller's in this very strange position. Unlike I've seen in a lot of circumstances in the past, the guy's 90 years old, and instead of just wanting to cash out and make it easy for his kids, what he prefers is that someone basically comes in, offers him his price, but in exchange for his price, he's willing to hold a mortgage and prefers to hold a mortgage for the foreseeable future. He claims he wants to hold a mortgage for 20 plus years.
Why does he want to do that? Just wondering.
He wants and sees it to be better that his kids have a steady income for the next 20 years instead of just having a lump sum of cash.
Oh, wow.
Do I agree that it's not really, but that's what he wants to do and is not really willing to budge unless he gets substantially more than his number, which makes no sense. But that's where he's at. I don't listen. I'm the kind of guy where I'll present any numbers you want. I'm just letting you know we've presented numbers like this already, and he much more prefers to do the long-term financing. But there's some benefits to it, right? Like if you want, I think this is, I think that, you know, if you came in at, you know, the 7.5 number and you put down, let's say 50%, you put down 50% and hold the remaining 50%, I think that you probably can do pretty well.
What do you mean by that?
I think you'd have better returns if you did, instead of an all cash purchase, you could, you know, he'll hold it for 20 years. And obviously, you know, based on what he wants.
Explain what you're saying. I'm not getting it.
What are you not understanding?
What do you think they can do well, putting down 50% and paying $750,000 more than it's worth?
First and foremost, the deal is not going to get done at your price. So it's, you know, it would be the difference of you getting it or not getting it, number one. But two, and more importantly, obviously you'd come to the table with a lot less cash, and you'd have, you know, we could try to negotiate a good interest rate. I mean, the seller wants, I think, like 6.5% interest for 20 years. You know, I think that, you know, with no bank fees and everything else, I think you're going to be in a decent position over the next, you know, decade or two to cash flow pretty nicely. I think, you know, you can make decent returns on your investment. Do I want you to pay $750,000 for absolutely nothing? No, absolutely not. But in order to get this deal done, we need to be at 7.5 and roughly 50% down in order for this guy to even remotely consider it.
So I'm not sure that I'm following you, but I think you're just saying, like, if you want the deal, then it's what you have to do. That's what you're saying. You're not saying that the deal is actually good because you're saying I have to put down 50% cash, and then I have to take a loan at 6.5% for the next 20 years.
Based on every offer we've submitted to this guy and every bit of feedback that we've received, the best terms that we've been provided by the seller that he will agree to based on the current situation is what I've presented to you. Because I've given this guy about 10 offers already. Okay. And and we kind of keep chipping away at pricing and everything. And we've, you know, gotten basically the terms that we've sent to you, which is 7.5 with 50% down. And listen, maybe we can do a little bit, you know, maybe a smidge better here and there. Maybe you do, you know, whatever feels comfortable. I'm okay with it. But I'm just like, those are the term guidelines that we've gotten this guy to. And look, do I think it makes sense, you know, that he holds a note for 20 years? I don't think it's the best case scenario.
I don't know what rates are going to go. You know, it's hard to know.
Yeah, look, you lock for 3 to 5 years, and then you get to renegotiate based off of par, you know, and see if par changes. You're locked on the upside, you know, of rates, but on the downside, you can, you know, maybe par moves with rates. You know, if rates come down to 5, then the par changes for a year. I think there's a way that we can make this work. I don't think that we have to try to say that, like, we'll lock in for 6.5% interest for 20 years. We'll say, hey, we'll lock in for 3, and then it goes based off of par with a cap of 6.5. You know, I don't see that being an issue. I think the seller might be open to that.
What do you think the upside is on this deal?
I would hold this for the next 20 years. I think this is, you know, occasion that, you know, eventually, and a lot of people are being pressed into moving to. I mean, the demand in that market. I mean, I remember selling a portfolio, you know, nearly 10 years ago for $100,000 a unit, you know, of single family homes, and we ended up making a fantastic return on that investment 10 years ago. And I think that, you know, that market is slowly growing. There's a lot more demand coming to that area. There's not as many large mobile home parks of this size in the state of New Jersey. I would hold this until, you know, I would literally hold this for the rest of my life. I think that the prices will probably double in the next 10 years per mobile home, I'm saying. And you'll probably end up having almost nearly double the rent in the next 10-ish plus years, you know? It's very affordable for now.
$7.5 million, and half of it is
3.750
is 20 grand. Let's say, I don't know Is this amortizing or not?
He'd like it to amortize, but we could probably say for the first maybe year, 2 or 3 if you prefer that.
So $24,000 a month. What was the income again?
Netting roughly 40-ish thousand, 40 to 44,000 a month.
Yes, it's at least half the income.
Correct.
And then you had $3.5 million on the table. So I don't think the numbers add up over here.
What doesn't add up for you? The fact that you're netting 20,000.
You can't make a return on your money. I mean, 3.5%. You want to make a couple dollars, right?
How much money do you need to make on your money? Tell me.
You have expenses of $200,000 over here, right? So you have, aside from starting
the net operating income is about a little over $500,000. The NOI, the gross income is about
24,000 times 12.
288.
Yeah, so you're left with like $200,000. So let's say your cash flow is $200,000, best case scenario, and then you have $3.5 million.
3.75. Yeah, you're making 5%. You have a 5% cash on cash day one. And you can increase all the rents across the board. It's only at 5.25, market $700. Obviously, I wouldn't just jack them up $200 each, but I would definitely start raising them, as slowly but surely over time. If you can get a $200 rent bump over the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, $200 times 100, and if you bring in the other pads, by the way, the 129, that's an extra 25 grand a month. 25 grand a month times 12, you're adding another 309,000 in cash flow. The debt service hasn't changed. You've only increased your NOI by an additional 300 grand. Now you're making $500,000 a year into your 3.75 million bucks. In 5 years, you're at a 13% cash on cash. That's why we're seeing as much interest as we are in this. I think, again, this is a little bit longer term play. You're going to spend a couple $100 grand bringing in mobile homes from the for the to infill, and I think you're going to have a very good upside. And that's only at 700. I think in the next 5 years I think market right now is 700. I think in 5 years you'll probably be at a market value of 800. Do I think you can get to 1,000? Probably.
That's the thing. I like this prediction in the future. Let me ask you this, but also you get the 5%, but that's without any cost and stuff. I mean,
what cost? I'm saying I'm adding everything in. It's a $700,000 gross. Your net operating income with vacancy management, maintenance, a whole 9 yards is $500,000 a year. You're paying $288 in cost. Maybe we get them down to 6%, maybe 5.5%. We can figure, we can try to negotiate that a little bit if you like. We can try to get, maybe we get them down a little bit in rate. I don't know. I'm willing to present what you want. I'm just saying this is what he's told me. He said 6.5. Maybe we get him down to 6. I don't know what he's willing to do. Maybe, if the right number comes along, we get him down a 0.5 point. And obviously, like I said, we can maybe get it where it's locked for 3 years, but then we go down to, look, ready? Imagine if we did this. Imagine you did, and just bear with me for a second, $3.75 million in a loan. Okay, let's say we do 6% interest only, which is $225. That means you're cash flowing $275 a year to begin with. We do interest only for the first 3 years. Starting in year 3, we do par with a cap of 6.5, right? Or 6, or wherever we start off in the beginning, right? Like we start off with whatever par is at the highest. But if par is below 6.5, then whatever par is, that's what you're going to be paying in rent, or whatever the treasury is. 10 year plus 1 point, or 5 year plus 1 point with a cap of 6.5. I think that this way it caps your downside and unlimited upside, and I think that you'd be in a really, really powerful position to make great money on this deal.
Again, your NOI was how much?
500. Now you're like, if we set it up that way, you're paying 2.25 to debt service. You're netting 275, and into 3,750 is a 7.3% cash on cash day one. Over the next 5 years, you can increase your NOI by another $300,000. And again, I think you're going to be in a much better position that way. But that allows you to pay at the 7.5, and that's where we're going to need to be to get something done.
He's not budging up that number.
No. Maybe do I get him to do 7.4 with maybe.
But he presented him 7? We've
presented him 7, but the terms were not agreeable. It was a much lower down payment. It was the whole 9 yards. I think if you want to try 7, we can try 7. For sure. I will look. Me, like I keep saying here. I will present any number you want. I just know that he already declined 7 with, I think it was with like $1.5 million or $2 million down. He really needs to put down a certain amount of, he wants to pay off, I think, some debt that the family has, and he wants to be able to give some family money before he passes away. So that's why he needs the 50% down. I think we'll have a much better chance if we try to go in at 7.4, because I know that, again, he's declined 7. But if you want to, put your pen to paper, whatever you want to do, let's put it on paper. Let's put it in front of him. I'm open to it.
Let's do 7 million and put the 5.5% interest Well, you know, whatever he wants, I don't know, 50% down.
7 million, 50% down, 5.5% interest.
5.5% interest with 3 years of IO. Again, so we're putting ourselves in a position that we can't take out the loan, right?
That's what this guy wants. I don't mind if we say like.
Then we'll do a point over treasuries, 1 point over treasury. It resets every 3 years, 1 point over treasury.
Look, that's fine. But look, why don't we'll draft it up? We'll send it to you. We'll put it in front of him, and all we can do is see what he says, you know. And I'll do my best to try to get him to agree. But we'll take it one step at a time.
Sounds good. You think we get agency financing?
We're gonna get Uncle Bob financing. That's what we're getting.
Uncle Bob financing.
No worries. Okay, sounds good. We'll get this drafted. Thank you.
Speak to you.
Speak to you.
Thank
Bye.
you.